Hey, my name is Caleb Wynn, and today I'm going to be talking about the case study of overcoming staffing challenges through greater efficiency, modernized HR policy. So today I have with me my dad and my mom, Brian and Patty Wynn, and my wife who's behind the camera videoing. And my name is Caleb Wynn. I am in the administrative track at Emory in the medical imaging program. And so let's get started. The objectives that I have for this presentation is that I'm going to outline the issues of battling a growing patient population, or at least through as the case study did. Highlight the plans to handle the growing population, overworking employees, and attracting and retaining staff. I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of each plan. And I'll also offer my own options and other options that you could use to achieve these goals. And I'm also going to examine my own strategy and at my organization and my department. Does anybody have any questions before we start? So the core issues, patient population is increasing. The baby boomer population is getting out of the workforce faster than we can replace them. That's kind of the real life scenario, but more so related to the case study. Overworked staff leads to burnout and an unattractive environment. So it's kind of hard to attract and retain staff in that kind of environment. So therefore, another core issue is attracting and retaining staff. So some of the proposed solutions in the case study: increasing labor efficiency, maximizing efforts to attract and retain staff, and meeting the needs of female employees. There are the three things, the three major aspects of this case study and what they implement. So streamlining employee workflow. That is one of the main ways that they're increasing the labor efficiency. So what does streamlining the workflow, the employee workflow mean? It's optimizing all processes, making sure that they run at full efficiency, making sure that they do the things you need them to do, but also at a minimal utilization of the number of processes or programs you use. So you have also an improved management of individual competencies, and invest in appropriate technologies that reduce workload and are easy and safe for staff to learn and operate. So let's talk a little bit more about the optimization of processes. So basically it has to deal with interconnection and integration with different software programs, computer software and things like that. What it would be is you'd have computer programs. A lot of times hospital organizations have multiple computer programs that kind of complete the same task. I know personally at my workplace we have about 3 different programs that can really be replaced by just one simple program. The 3 that we have are Apollo, Wavemark, and Expert, or 4 actually. Apollo, Wavemark, Expert, and Accelera. They're all geared towards documenting cases, X-ray, the X-ray information, and Apollo is the charger. Wavemark is charging things, and the Expert has to deal with the patient account. So all of those things and how they're charged. So all 4 of those things could be replaced by one, which is called MacLab. And that's an actual thing that exists, and where it does X-ray, it does the charging, it does the patient information, and it does the procedure notes as well. Can anybody think of something in their workplace that could be a little, the optimization could be a little used? Maybe you're using 3-4 different programs to do one job. Can you think of something specific?
At my school, we have Banner, and we have this other thing called the iNet, and then we also have DegreeWorks, which is embedded into Banner, but we have to use all 3 to complete one job, when really one of them, if it was built correctly, and it would be more efficient.
Right.
spend a lot of time going in and out of one
Right.
to get into the other, just to get one or two
Right.
things.
So what does that do? That prolongs your work process. It makes you
Yes.
have to work longer, harder, and pay attention to one task for a longer period of time. So therefore, you're not as efficient. So that's what you would be doing when optimizing your programs or your processes. You're increasing your efficiency overall. And then what the ultimate goal of this interconnection or this integration of technology and to increase efficiency would be automation. We want technology to be automatic. We want as little manual entry or as little manual work to do in order to work more efficiently. So that's what that does. It creates more automation and less manual work, which in turn creates more efficiency. So improved management of individual competencies. So basically, it's like breaking down processes into component parts, and you're analyzing, connecting, you're managing how everything works together, the managing and the utilization of technology to streamline the processes, and how to integrate different elements. So then you go into the investment of appropriate technologies. So what you want for your staff is the easiest, safest, and the smartest technology to use. So what that does is it allows for flexibility of staff. Anybody in the department could use it, right? Anybody in this, so at this point, staff are maybe interchangeable. You don't have to have one particular person operating this machine or this technology. You can have anybody. So if somebody calls in sick or if anything like that, you just have more flexibility with your staff. And then a reduction in training costs. So this could come with if it's more simple, if it's if it's easier to learn, you don't have people coming in teaching you how to do it. You don't have to have multiple courses and teaching your employees how to learn this equipment. So therefore, it's going to cut down on your training costs. And then there's a less need for over specialized experts. This kind of goes into the same deal with the training costs, in my opinion. Those people aren't, they don't work for free. Those experts, they don't work for free. They're there for a reason. I think of what they're talking about in this scenario as patient representatives who come and they represent their products and they teach you how to use them, and it costs for that, or at least to see what happens with that device and things like that. So that's how I would compare it. So then you have the maximizing efforts to attract and retain staff. So employee selection. This case study says that employee selection is a major component of ensuring that you're attracting and retaining staff. So the whole process of it would be defining important behavioral competencies. So knowing what employees you want to hire before you hire them. Becoming better at interviewing candidates. So that this would improve your overall, the dynamic of questions that you ask, what you want those questions to actually answer about that person who's being interviewed. Using proven behavioral assessments to examine behavioral competencies. So maybe this would be your tests, your written tests, or things of that nature to determine how well they would be at that particular job. This case study doesn't really talk about it as much, but you do have to be careful that these aren't biased, or that you're not being prejudiced, or you're not being what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, you're not being stereotypical, or you're not putting a certain protected group or a certain group out of the running. So that's what you kind of have to be careful with in that aspect. And then some general strategies. So, these are just strategies that are just, any company, any organization could do these. So clarify work expectations, encourage staff input, support career development, schedule flexibility, placement of effective managers, build teamwork, and do not tolerate lateral violence. So all those things are something that can increase your employee engagement and motivation, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So this is a little bit of the maximizing efforts to attract and retain staff further on. So they also talk about workplace training, team training, equipment training. Team training is supposedly supposed to help cut down on medical error mortality by about 15% and medical errors by about 20%. That's just a study that randomly popped into my head. And then equipment training, and then you have creating and maintaining a good reputation. They see this as important in attracting staff more so than retaining, obviously. So they want to have a good reputation of a work-life balance. They want to have a good reputation of salary. They say that if a company has a good reputation of salary, or they're known to pay their employees well, and then they also have employee engagement and the work-life balance, then that company is going to be more attractive than other companies who can't compete with with those three things. Establish meaningful relationships. So this does more things than it definitely does enables effective communication, but it also opens up many other doors in terms of motivation and in terms of your overall performance of your staff, because they'll be more engaged, they'll be motivated, they feel like you are listening to them, and they feel heard when you have meaningful relationships. So another part of the case study was meeting the needs of female employees. So what they decided, or what they came up with, were some of the kind of important needs or necessities that would be attractive to the female worker. So they would be flexible work hours, compressed work schedules, fully paid maternity leave, child care services, company-owned breastfeeding rooms, and provision of mentoring programs and career counseling by the employer. So, as the majority of healthcare are female employees, that's just a fact. I think later on we'll see that it's about 3-to-1 ratio. And more doctors are also becoming, or more and more doctors are also female. I think I was looking at something the other day that said that there are more female doctors in medical school than male doctors. I think that was in a recent study. So some of the pros to these approaches, or these things that this case study has brought up, most of them are pretty realistic. They're not far-fetched. They can be accomplished for the most part. So the efficiency, the labor, the increasing the efficiency with it, it cuts down workload, and it also cuts down, or it also improves production of the employee and overall department. So it's a win-win. They complement each other, really. It lowers your workload and increases production, which typically that isn't really the case. The more production you have, the more workload you're getting in some instances. So that's always a good thing. So the general strategies in the workplace training, they should be very effective in engaging your employees and motivating them. So establishing and maintaining a well-known positive organization reputation will promote attractiveness. So remember how they did that was, or at least how they proposed that they would do that, is through let's go back to it, through the work-life balance, the salary, and the employee engagement. So that's how they did that. And that is a definite pro, because anytime you can improve your reputation as an organization, you're going to get more resumes, you're going to get more applications for your jobs, and people are going to want to work for you. So establishing meaningful relationships can improve employee morale. And we already kind of talked about what relationships can do for you and your organization. So some of the cons. For me personally, it's hard to be picky in healthcare. Hiring the right people is important, but there's a pretty big number of shortages of nurses, especially. And with the battling of the patient population growing, this number is not going to go away. There's going to be nursing shortages for a very long time, unfortunately. So while we do need to pick and be picky about who we hire, sometimes we don't have that luxury. Sometimes we need warm bodies. Sometimes we need people to just fill those positions because we have no other choice. So that's one con to the being very selective in the hiring process. I do think it's necessary to be that way, but sometimes we just don't have a choice. For me, more emphasis should be on managing effectively. So you see this right here, leadership qualities. That there's never been, that people used to think that leadership was a certain amount or certain traits that people possess. Well, that's not really truth anymore. People have kind of gotten out of that mindset of trait theory. And now people do still believe that there are certain qualities that some leaders possess, but you cannot associate, if you have these qualities, then you're definitely a leader. It's just more so, they've noticed some similarities. So possessing those leadership qualities that's what's gonna help you in this. Because what leadership, the basis of leadership is, for an organization anyway, leaders promote vision and they help with change. That's their main role. There's a difference between a manager and a leader. So, a manager is not always a leader, and a leader is not always a manager. And one important idea is, or really kind of saying, rather, is managers, they do things right, but leaders, they do the right thing. So it's kind of, just kind of a funny little quick thing to think about managers and leaders. And then technology integration and simplicity is unfortunately not always in agreement with the budget or easily accepted by staff. What staff is going to be completely acceptive of change? Hardly any. So you're gonna receive some pushback from that new software, or you might not even be able to get the new software, because sometimes the most simple, sometimes the easiest and the safest is the most expensive, and it's the one that's not in your budget. So this is not always going to be available for organizations to actually do or to get. I am in agreement that females, their needs should definitely be met. It is the majority of the workforce, and to maintain this majority of the workforce, I think it is important to supply them with their basic needs. And I would agree that all of those mentioned on the slide about kind of catering to women would all need to be met. However, they already outweigh men 3-1 in the healthcare organization or in the healthcare field. So it seems to me that to promote more diversity, which is, if managed properly, will be better off for your organization, maybe men should be more, you should try to attract more men into the field. If you're already doing some things to attract women, which obviously healthcare is, because most of healthcare workers are women, then you may need to focus on attracting more men. And then therefore your numbers might increase anyway, and your diversity increases, and then in that sense it's a win-win. So yes, so let's continue. So some of the strategies that I would put in place, or that I would really focus on, would be the placement of educated and trained managers and supervisors. Before I go any further, I want to pay attention to this one statistic right here. 75% of people leave their job because of their relationship with their immediate supervisor or with their frontline supervisor. 75%. That's how important in retaining your employees is. That's how important your frontline supervisor is, their immediate supervisor. 75%. So, most managers and supervisors in healthcare, they only get their positions through clinical skill. They don't go through further education. They don't go through further training. The only training they have is on the job, and they're only limited as to what the person taught them before them. So, and then the person before that, it's the same thing. So it's all handed down training and it's no formal education, not in all cases, but in many cases in healthcare. So this is something that would also need to change. If managers are in place with little education, for me, I would make sure that they would get that education and training. I would be sure that they're continuing their education if they're working for me personally. And if that were not the case, I would do my best to put managers and supervisors in that position who were educated and trained. So I'd also ensure that leadership promotes the organization's vision and helps with change. We talked about the basis of a leader, which is promoting the vision of the organization and for helping with change for some of the subordinates. And this could be a manager as well. But like I said, not all leaders are managers. But I would definitely make sure that my managers and supervisors possess the qualities, or at least did the things that a leader does, which are those two basic concepts right there. And then I would also stress the importance of interpersonal relationships and its role in motivation, behavioral influence, and morale overall in the workplace. So some other things that I was thinking about, this would be my main platform with managers and supervisors based solely on the statistic of 75% of people, the statistic we just talked about. But some other things I would do is I may try to have an attractive sign-on bonus. If we're struggling to find people, if we're struggling to attract people, then a sign-on bonus is something that you can have, or you put in place where people have to sign a contract, and you do want the employee to have gain from it, which would be the sign-on bonus, but you also make it for your gain. You make it to where that employee, in the contract, the employee has certain things that they have to do, and they by all means earn that sign-on bonus with the contract that they sign. And then I would do preceptor pay. And this is all related to my organization and my department. I don't personally know of any sign-on bonuses in my department right now. So this is what I would do. And then preceptor pay. So you want to retain employees? Well, our department in our hospital is a teaching hospital, supposedly. Navicent Health is a teaching hospital. So we have many students. Our turnover rate's pretty high as well, so we're constantly training new employees. So you want to retain staff in that kind of teaching environment, you should require, or you should at least give your staff preceptor pay. That's going to be incentive for them to want to keep teaching, want to keep training, and it also makes them want to stay where they are because it's an additional increase in their pay. So those are the three things, the major things that I would do in this scenario, in this particular case study, and with these issues that have been presented. And that's it. So thank you for listening to me. I hope you've enjoyed it. Does anybody have any questions about anything, about my organization, about the organization in the case study? You might think of anything? All right. Well, thank you.
Great job.
Have a good night.